Welcome back to Hair Smarter, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get real about what it actually takes to build a sustainable career behind the chair and beyond. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Sarajane, and today we're talking about a moment almost every stylist will face at some point in their career, but very few of us are taught how to navigate it well.
Knowing when it's time to move salons.
And whether that's because your salon is closing, you've outgrown the space, or the culture no longer fits, or the environment just doesn't feel healthy anymore.
Listen, this isn't just a logistical change. It's emotional, it's professional, and for a lot of stylists, it brings up fear, guilt, even grief, and
Yeah.
excitement all at the same time.
So today we're going to slow this down and we're going to talk about how to know when it's really time, how to
Hmm.
prepare without panic, how to reduce stress during this process, and how to leave and land with integrity.
Ooh, this is going to be a good one. All right, well, let's actually start with why this feels so hard.
Research on career transition shows that job changes trigger stress responses similar to other major life events. Not because change is bad, but because uncertainty activates the nervous system.
And for stylists, this stress is amplified, right? We're not just changing a workplace, our
Mhm.
income, our identity, relationships, and sense of safety are often tied to where we work.
So true.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
also research around professional identity that shows when people leave a job, they experience a temporary identity disruption. This in between phase where you're no longer who you are, but not fully who you're becoming yet.
Mm. That unsettled feeling doesn't mean you're making the wrong choice, just so we're clear. It means you are in transition.
And that matters because when we understand what's happening emotionally, we're less likely to make reactive decisions.
Oh, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can remember the first time I left my big job, and it seems appropriate to talk about right now when I left Bumble and Bumble in New York. That
Mm,
was the first salon that I had been with, and I was ready. I think for about a year, I was ready to move. I was getting super annoyed and just was ready to move on. I don't think you should ever kind of stay where you did your big training. But I was actually really surprised the day that I actually like pulled the trigger, so to speak, um, how emotional that was for me. Because I had spent nearly 15 years of my life in the same space, in the same role with like your friends and your coworkers and your managers and all the things. So it did kind of feel like I got the rug swept out from under me, but also I don't know, I kind of felt at the same time really excited to move on to the next space. Um, yeah, I was actually just really surprised with how emotional it felt,
yeah.
even though the decision was right.
Yeah. And it's hard because you put a lot of time and energy into these spaces that we work in. And typically, most salons will like just shoot you out the door really fast
Yeah, they
because
make it really hard.
they make it really hard. And that is like, uh, so
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Yeah. So let's talk about like, is it time or am I just feeling overwhelmed?
Great distinction.
One of the most important distinctions we can make here is between burnout and misalignment.
Yeah, because research shows that anticipatory stress, the stress of thinking about leaving, is often worse than the transition itself.
It's so true in real life. The stress of
Oof.
thinking about anything is often worse than
Mm.
actually what happens. So, when you're emotionally exhausted, your brain wants relief, and relief can look like, I just need out.
But urgency actually isn't clarity.
So, before making any moves, we recommend slowing it down.
So, if you are in this position right now where you're very stressed out about thinking about leaving, here's a couple things that you can ask yourself. Is this a pattern or just a bad season?
Mhm.
If nothing changed, would I realistically do another year here? And if everything changed, would I even want to stay?
Yeah, these questions help separate emotional overload from long term misalignment.
Yeah. I mean, can you think of a time, well, I think everything's urgent in my head. So,
Same.
can you actually think of a time when you wanted to leave immediately and what you learned by pausing or not pausing?
I think pausing in general is an important tool to use in
Mm,
making any kind of decision. I think there's also, when you're kind of thinking about this decision, right? You're like almost asking yourself this every day. Like, is this misalignment? Am I mad? Are they not treating me well? Am I not getting the most out of this space that I want to get out of my work environment? And yeah, just slowing down, it's so important to really process these things and ask yourself the right questions.
I felt like every time I've only worked at a few salons, to be honest, like a handful of them, but I feel like every time I have started to get that itch or started to get that feeling, after a while, I felt like it was really helpful for me to actually just make a list, right? Like one side was all the things I love about being there, and the other side was everything I hated about being there.
Pros
And
and cons.
doing that over a few months, like just keeping it like somewhere I can write things down actually became really important for me to see over time. So I definitely have always tried to give myself like, all right, for the next 2 months, I'm going to just write down everything I see. And then when you look at it, it feels like you can be more not as emotional about it, I guess.
Yeah, so important. So, the emotional side, the grief, the guilt, and the loyalty, even when leaving is the right choice, there's often grief.
Yeah, there is, and that sometimes can be surprising, especially if it's your first or second time moving salons, right?
Yeah.
You're grieving routines, you're grieving relationships, the comfort of knowing where everything is. Sometimes even the version of yourself that grew up there.
Yeah. Research on work identity loss shows that people often experience guilt during transitions, especially when they feel loyal to the people or place they're leaving.
Hmm. But growth isn't betrayal.
No. You can appreciate what a salon gave you and still acknowledge it's no longer where you belong.
Studies in transition psychology show that intentional closure, naming what you're grateful for, reduces long term regret and like rumination.
Yeah. I remember leaving a salon that was attached to a personal relationship.
Mm,
And because I was the part of like the inception of the company, it was really challenging for me because it felt like a baby to me too, even though I didn't have like any financial attachment to it or I wasn't an owner of the salon. But it was so hard for me, even though I knew it was the right thing.
yeah. Yeah, and it's so scary because before you start talking about it with, let's say, the owners or the manager or whatever, I'm sure it feels like, I mean, this has been my experience. It feels like, God, what are they going to say? I do want to be loyal to this company. I put a lot into it, but it just doesn't feel right anymore. It truly feels like a breakup, to be honest.
It does. Because our bosses, our work employees, these relationships are so
Mm.
intertwined. We share so much with the people that we work with and around as far as, breakups, divorces, client stories,
Yeah.
our stories, like all the things. It's not like we're in cubicles. We're all in the same room together, all feeling everybody's energy. And so it is. It's like a full breakup relationship.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, all of these emotions, they can be overwhelming, but what has always helped me is kind of preparing practically, right? For it to
Yes.
happen. Once you've kind of made that decision that you're going to leave, you don't need to pull the trigger like right then. So it's really about preparing yourself so it's an easy transition for yourself. So let's get practical because I do think preparation is what calms fear.
And before interviewing anywhere, you should have a basic understanding of your business.
Yes. So here's the list of things that you should probably know, not probably, what you should know before you interview anywhere is your average ticket price, what you bring in, your rebooking rate, your retention rate, your average weekly or monthly income, and your schedule capacity.
And you do not need perfection. You need
Yeah.
information. So if all the
Yeah.
numbers don't make sense, it's okay. I mean, they will make sense when you look at it as in a whole, but it doesn't need to be perfect.
And if you haven't done that before, or if you're thinking, oh, I kind of know what my numbers are, we really suggest that you get the real deal, right? Because our heads make up a lot of things that are true or not true about ourselves. So you can find these numbers by pulling reports from your booking software, looking at the last 3 to 6 months. Or if that feels uncomfortable, like if you're working at a salon where you don't have access to those things, you can start manually tracking for 30 days if you need to.
Yes. Start making your own records if you don't have access to them.
Yeah.
Research on uncertainty and stress shows that clarity, even imperfect clarity, reduces anxiety and improves decision making.
Yes, 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 yes. Because I do remember when I left Bumble and Bumble, the first big salon, I started to interview at a couple different smaller, like boutique salons in New York. And the first place that I went to, I was like, well, I mean, Bumble has a great reputation and I've been there for a long time and I had known the owner and all of those things. And I actually didn't show up with these numbers. I showed up with well, I don't know. I'm like 70 to 90% booked, which is a pretty big range in there. And so when they asked me these questions, I kind of didn't have the answers or have them written down for them. And to be honest, it made me look really bad, I think. I
Mhm,
didn't actually get
mhm,
that job. Like
mhm.
it made me look like I didn't know what my business was doing. I have never hired anyone, but I'm sure as a hiring person, to have someone walk in and just try to float in there without knowing their actual numbers isn't great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember before I went independent, I did this actually. I worked with a person who made a chart for me, and for 2 months every client that came in, I marked down like how long they had been seeing me, where they came from, were they a referral, were they a walk-in? And then after 2 months I looked at the numbers and I was, like, confident. I was like,
Yeah.
"I can do this. I can make this work." There was no second guessing, there was no stress, there was no anxiety. It was like, "Oh, this is the better decision for me because I had the information."
Well, yeah. And even if your numbers aren't where you want them to be, that's okay too, because you're going in with where you are and you're saying, hey, I really want to build in the next year, like 5 or 10% or whatever, like in booking. And like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Like, I would love to hear that as a salon owner.
Oh,
Great.
yeah.
You know where you are and where we're going to go.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk about interviewing at new
Hmm,
salons and what
great.
to do, what not to do. So interviewing goes both ways. Don't think of this as an audition. Think about it as you're assessing fit for yourself.
Yeah, it really is true because it is starting a new relationship with an entity or with an owner or with whoever, right? You're right. You really have to go both ways and ask the questions. So,
Yes.
do ask about the culture,
Yes.
ask how conflict is handled, and ask what success looks like there.
And pay attention to how staff interacts with each other and notice how your body feels in the space. That's a big one for
Yes,
me.
that is a good one. The biggest one, I think, is do not go in and badmouth your current salon. You never want to lead a new relationship or a new salon or a new job with trauma, right? And don't ignore red flags because you're excited.
Yeah, it's so true. If the answers you're getting are vague now, they'll be vague later.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely had that happen. at one of the salons that I worked at. It was small and boutique-y. I was really excited to maybe work with this person. They were gonna pay me a lot of money to help create their education and curriculum there, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." When I walked in, I kinda knew the aesthetic wasn't for me, the way that people interacted, when I asked about their assistant program, there was a lot of turnover, and it just if I had looked at it and taken my own excitement out of it, I would have known that that was not the place for me. But I was excited to start somewhere new, that someone had asked me to be in charge of their entire education department, and I was gonna make a lot of money there. So I was like, "Yeah, great, this feels right," but, like, it actually didn't feel right.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
important to pay attention to how people communicate with you too.
And honestly, like, I know it sounds ridiculous when you're looking for a new job because you're always worried about money. In this industry, and especially now, we're always worried about how much money we're going to make, right? But
Yeah.
I can say from personal experience, even if you're making the most money in the world, if the culture isn't right, it's never, it might be good for a year, might be good for 10 years, it might be good for whatever, but like at the end of it, it really isn't.
No. No. Let's talk about clients, fear, and legal reality. You know,
Ooh.
fear around clients, and if you're going to retain them, you're going to lose them. It's probably one of the biggest stressors of this whole process.
And sometimes that fear is reinforced by salon owners, of course.
Oh, yeah.
So at one salon that I sounds like I went to like a gazillion salons. I literally had like three in my whole life, but whatever. So, like, one salon that I had been at, I brought a book of clients with me. They were, of course, as they booked, I was there for probably 2 or 3 years, had gotten into the system. But, with social media and because I had all their contact information, when I decided to leave, I, of course, contacted all my clients and told them that I was leaving. The owner of that space was not happy about that. And she was kind of a hothead. And she came at me and she was like, "You stole the clients' names and I'm going to sue you." I was like, "You can't do that," because I'm always like that. But then, of course, I did have to make a phone call to like one of my clients who is a lawyer and ask about the legality of those things because even though I knew that I was right in the situation, it was so scary to me. And like
Yeah.
having a salon owner that was a hothead like that, on top of already having to leave the salon, that I didn't want to be there anymore, it was rough.
Yeah. It's really scary. But, we're not lawyers, but here's what matters.
Clients are people, they're not property. Okay. So clients are people, they're not property. Contracts do matter. So, you know, non-competes typically, from what we found, often don't hold up, especially in the service industries.
Yeah. And research shows uncertainty fuels anxiety and facts calm fears. So know your stuff.
Yeah, and preparation, not intimidation, should guide your choices. So I think that social media actually does make it a little bit easier these days because you
Yeah.
can put it out. When we started 30 years ago, that wasn't even alive yet. Like social media wasn't even a thing. And so you had to find a way to find your client's information. And it felt like a little scary and sneaky and all the things. But now I feel like it is a little bit easier, right? So being prepared with, what you're going to post or being prepared and start talking to your clients about what you're going to be doing or getting your list together and all of those things. Um, when you are really prepared for something, then you're not as intimidated by it.
I know. I remember I used to have a piece of paper in my pocket, like if I was thinking about leaving, and I would just write down everybody's name and phone number, like secretively, and keep it in my pocket. I would do that for months
Yeah,
just so
I
I
know.
had people's information.
Right? Like that was crazy. Or, I mean, back in the day, it was common practice to get to be buddies with one of those front desk people. And, maybe it's an after hour print job, in the back room, but I'm not going to confirm or deny any of that. But yeah, it was crazy what we
Yep.
had to do.
Yep. So let's talk about communicating with clients and doing
Mm,
that confidently.
great.
Clients don't need your emotional processing.
They really don't. What they need is clarity.
Yeah. Keep communication factual, forward focused, and confident.
Don't apologize for growing. Don't create panic, and don't trash your old salon. Oh, that is a big one. Do not trash your old salon.
No, no, it's so important. I mean, even clients will try and get you to like gossip because they
Ooh,
want
they
the
love it,
tea.
don't they?
They love it. Even when that happens, like keep your cool because, all that stuff ends up coming back to you. And it's just stuff that you don't want to get bogged down with. It's all about growth, right? Anyway. And like keeping that stuff in the conversation is not moving you forward.
Yeah, while you're at the old salon telling clients or when you're at the new salon. Because if you
Yeah.
get like caught up in this gossip ring, like where you're like, oh my God, and then they did this, and then they did that. First of all, your clients don't really care. I'm just
No.
letting you know. Everyone loves a little gossip. That's why they're listening. The second thing is you will then spend the first 6 months at your new place of growth and amazing,
Exactly.
whatever, talking about shit that didn't work for you.
And talking about the past.
Yeah, like who wants to do that?
No.
Oh gosh. Well, speaking of that, like landing and managing expectations, right? There is something called the honeymoon hangover effect.
Yeah. So after a big move, excitement spikes and then it often dips.
That dip, just so you know, doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision.
It means you're adjusting, adjusting to your
Yes.
new life.
Yes. And that's okay, right? You have to be ready for the ups and downs. And with any big change, that's how it goes. So, leaving a salon, all in all, doesn't mean that you failed.
No, it means you listened
And you can leave with integrity.
and land with confidence.
So, thanks for hanging out with us today on Hair Smarter. If this is something that like resonated with you, or if you know someone that is thinking about leaving or needs to leave their salon, please share, like, comment, all of the things with people that you think could really benefit from this.
Yeah. Until next time, we're hair smarter.
What Hair School forgot to tell you. Bye.
Bye.